Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's Chickenz here, back again with another Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity video. Today we'll continue to revisit the starting characters, and in this video we'll be taking another look at Impa's moveset with all of her upgrades. Opening up the attack menu for Impa, here are all of her attack combos and abilities, and as always I'll go over each one of these in detail and show you exactly what they do. Before we get started, please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of these character guides. I will be making one for each playable character. And now that all that's out the way, let's start this video off by taking a look at some of her basic abilities. Impa's first basic ability is her version of a dash attack, in which she throws out her hat kind of like a boomerang while she's running. You perform this move by sprinting and pressing X, and if you have any clones out, they'll throw out darts in addition to the hat throw. Next up is her enhanced ability, which is a mid-dodge attack. This activates automatically and all you have to do is dodge an enemy with good timing. The timing for this can be kind of finicky, so sometimes you may have to dodge the attack but it won't activate because you may have done it a little too early. Impa's unique action, which is probably the best one in the entire game, allows you to apply up to 3 symbols to any enemies near you. You can then absorb these symbols by using a strong attack on an enemy or just by KOing them. The first 2 symbols you absorb will always spawn 2 clones each, and then the last one will always spawn 4 clones. These clones will all mimic the attacks that Impa does and even buff up some of her combos, which I'll go over in the attack combo section. Having all of your clones will drastically increase Impa's damage output. It makes her easily one of the better characters in the game. And finally, if you already have all 3 of the symbols to try to use her unique action, instead of applying symbols, all of Impa's clones will instead do a forward dash attack. Kind of tying into her unique action, Impa also has the ability to throw a dart whenever she's in midair. This is done by tapping ZR while she's midair, which will then put her in a bullet time. Then you have the ability to aim by using the left stick, and then pressing X will throw a dart onto an enemy. This dart will apply symbols to an enemy, and then Impa will teleport them and do a follow-up attack. And usually if it's a weaker enemy, she'll always get the symbol, but on the stronger ones, sometimes she'll miss and not get it. Next I'll show you a few of her weak point smash animations. Impa's weak point smash is just a standard one that does damage to bosses like most of the other characters. And finally, for Impa's special attack, it will change depending on the amount of symbols you have. If you have less than 3 symbols, her special attack will make her transform into a barrel and then launch herself onto enemies in front of her, doing damage to a wide area. The special attack will also always give you 1 symbol whenever you use it on an enemy, but if you have the max of 3 symbols, all of her clones will attack the enemy at the same time, building a pyramid with the Sheikah barrels and releasing a huge explosion. This version is far more powerful than the other one, but the only drawback is that it'll always take away 2 symbols from Impa. Now I'll quickly go over the Sheikah Runes. First for Cryonis, Impa will spawn a Cryonis block in front of her, which you can then ride if you quickly press X after it spawns. Once you're riding it, you can move around with it wherever and run over enemies, and once you're done with it, just press B to get off, and then the Cryonis block will break. Next for the Bomb Rune, Impa will create a small tornado that will suck in nearby enemies and then send them mid-air. Then when it sends them mid-air, it'll also send a bomb with them, which most of the time will end up finishing them off. Next for Magnesis, Impa will absorb nearby metal weapons and form them into one huge weapon that she'll swing at her enemies. And this one can be used wherever. You don't need to have metal weapons near you, she just pulls them out of the ground if you don't have any near you.
Here it goes.
Lastly for this section we have Impa's Stasis, which freezes all nearby enemies, and after they're frozen you'll be prompted to attack with X, but instead of doing this you should probably cancel out that with B and just attack with all of her clones instead. Now for the attack combos. So like I said earlier when I was discussing her unique action, Impa's clones will buff up all of her attack combos. So first I'll show you guys what they look like without any clones, and afterwards I'll show you what it looks like with them. Our first combo is going to be the basic 7 Ys combo, where Impa will just do some basic Sheikah ninja type attacks. And when you have clones, nothing really changes, they just mimic the same moves that Impa will do. Next up is an XX combo where Impa will teleport to an enemy and hit them with her Kodachi and then do a backward stab afterwards. And if you have any clones, they'll also teleport to the enemy and then explode after a few seconds. Combo 3 is our YX combo. For this one, Impa will do a regular attack followed by an attack where she will throw darts into the ground that explode and center in midair. And if you have any clones, they'll paraglide with Impa and drop exploding darts below them as they move forward. Combo 4 is the YYX combo where Impa will perform 2 regular attacks followed by a strong attack where she creates some clones that will attack enemies in a series of dash attacks from side to side. The more clones you have for this will increase the power of the last attack in this series where Impa's clones will run forward and strike her enemies in front of her. For combo 5, which is performed by pressing YYYX, Impa will do 3 regular attacks followed by a strong attack that sends out a small shockwave and applies a symbol to an enemy. If you already have any applied symbols to enemies beforehand, this combo will instead teleport them in front of you and then absorb all of them, making it the best to get 3 symbols quickly. If you have clones, the strong attack will then be changed to an attack where Impa's clones will float above her and shoot lasers at enemies in front of her. Combo number 6 is done by pressing Y 4 times and X once. When you do this, Impa will do 4 regular attacks followed by a strong one where she sends a huge Sheikah eye symbol on the ground that damages all enemies inside it. While this is happening, there will also be a huge dart spawned above the symbol that will slam into the ground doing some extra damage. And finally, if you have any clones, they'll all teleport near the dart and then slam the Kodachis into the ground with doing damage to all enemies in a very wide area. Combo 7 can be done by either pressing Y 5 or 6 times and then pressing X afterwards. This combo, Impa will do 5 regular attacks and then spawn a huge tireless frog that she rides on. You can then keep pressing X for a total of 9 times to get the frog to hop and do damage to enemies. Then whenever the frog stops, Impa will hop off and stab her Kodachi into the ground. And the clones really don't change this combo very much, they just only add more frogs for the final attack, which depends on the amount of clones you have. Alright, so now that we know all of the attack combos and abilities, now it's time for my quick tips section. And as always, I'll start off with going over my plan for my weapon build for Impa. For Impa, I find that her attack speed is already pretty fast, so I don't feel the need to buff it at all. So instead, I'm going to opt for using 3 damage per 100 KOs and then 1 special attack charge rate buff. This combination will allow us to get the max of a plus 20 damage increase to the weapon when taking into account her hidden seals as well. The damage per 100 KOs is mainly there to make her damage output with clones even more ridiculous than it already is. And the special attack charge rate seal allows us to get our special a little bit faster, so we just use it to spam bosses. For combat tips, the first tip is to always get max symbols as soon as you can. Whenever you're about to run into a battle, just quickly find a group of enemies, apply 3 symbols to them, and then use combo 5 to absorb all these symbols really quickly. Getting symbols is super easy and takes honestly probably around like 10 seconds, which is worth it for the huge damage increase the clones will end up giving you. And kind of tying into that, make sure you don't kill all the weaker enemies around you after you get your 3 symbols. You want to leave a few just so you can get symbols more easily, especially when there's mini bosses around since it takes a lot longer to get symbols off of them. Another tip I have is to make sure to use your special attack and don't worry about saving it for mini bosses. Obviously, if you know you're about to go into a fight with the boss really soon, then of course you probably just save it. But if you're a decent amount away from that, just feel free to go ahead and use your special attack super liberally. Impa's special attack probably has the quickest charge rate in the game, especially when you're using all of her clones and have the seals to increase its charge rate as well. So it honestly just wastes your damage potential if you decide to hold on to it instead of just using it whenever you want to. Tip number 3 is to make sure you keep track of her health and try to invest to avoid taking any unnecessary damage. This tip is kind of obvious for all characters, but I found that when you're playing Impa and have all of her clones out, it's kind of hard to keep track of her and pay attention to what's happening with the main Impa. This happened to me a lot because I mostly just mindlessly spammed all of her combos when I was fighting bigger enemies. So like, after a while I noticed like she'd be like really weak compared to my other characters. So if you want to avoid that, just make it a habit to keep track of her health and use all of her dodges whenever any enemy attacks you. And my last tip is to always stasis cancel when using Impa. Impa with all of her clothes can absolutely shred entire weak point gauges and health bars in one stasis if you just cancel out of it instead of attacking like prompted. So pretty much literally every situation, it's always better to stasis cancel instead of using these stasis like normal. And finally, for combos, I honestly think that all of Impa's combos are really good for both crowd control as well as taking out mini bosses. This is especially true when you have all of her clothes out as well. But if I did have to choose which ones were better, I do think combos 6 and 4 are a tad bit better for bosses, and combos 7 and 5 are a little bit better for large groups of enemies. Overall, Impa is easily one of the best characters in the game. She has insane damage output, especially with all of her clones, and since symbols are so easy to get, you will almost always have the max clones with you. She's amazing at crowd control as all of her clones help cover more area, and her combos also target large areas as well. However, she does have a slight weakness when it comes to fighting the harder bosses, especially when there's no weaker enemies nearby to get symbols off of. But you can easily work around this weakness by saving her special attack, which charges super fast, for the harder boss fights. Also, her stasis with all of her clones can make harder bosses a little easier too, as it can drain entire weak point gauges, allowing for Impa to get in a weak point smash for pretty much for free. From the characters we've covered so far, Impa is one of the best, and is probably on the same level or even better than Link in my opinion. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up the video for today. Those are all of the attack combos and abilities for Impa. So next up in this series, we'll probably cover Zelda next, either on Friday or Saturday. We'll look at both of her Sheikah Slate attack combos as well as the Bow of Light, so be on the lookout for that. And after the Zelda video is done, I'll start covering the movesets of the 4 future champions. I believe I put up a poll a few hours before this video goes public asking what future champion you want me to cover first. So if you have any preference, please make sure you go vote on the community tab on my channel. But if you guys enjoyed the video and found it helpful, please make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more Age of Calamity content, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.